Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we are about to get started with round 13 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. But first, as always, a word from our sponsors.
InDigital is on a mission to improve the 911 industry. Our goal is to create something better to go above and beyond the current standards. Our passion for creating the most advanced, well-designed solutions led to our position as an industry leader in next-gen core services. For the millions of calls processed over our emergency IP networks, to our Text for 911 solution, Texty, to our disaster recovery and backup solution, Mevo, it's easy to see we love what we do. For more information, check us out at www.indigital.net.
Rapid Deploy believes that every public safety agency, regardless of size, should have access to the data they need when it matters most. That's why, since 2016, our mission has been to reduce emergency response times and improve public safety. We are the industry's only integrated emergency response platform. Our web-based cloud platform includes analytics, mapping, dispatch, and mobile apps, purpose-built for 911 in the 21st century. Visit www.rapiddeploy.com to learn how we enable effective, efficient, data-driven emergency response.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned.
All right. We have gone through the intro. I still haven't put together an actual roundtable intro. I need to do that because that one that I'm sharing right there, that's actually the open mic one. That's why it cuts off so fast, but it's all good because we're here together and we are about to get started once again with the Dispatchers Roundtable, round 13. Now, I'm going to go ahead and bring up my panelists for this session, and then we will throw in some intro music, and bam, we are going to get started. So first off, coming at you is Andrea, and she's 911 training and development manager, and this is going to be out of Oregon. How's it going?
Hi.
Hey. All right.
How are you?
I'm doing good. And you've got some furry friends. This is awesome.
I do. They're my stress relief.
Perfect. This is going to be good. And then coming up next, we've got Rebecca, and she's with Cypress Creek EMS out of Texas.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome. And then we have Anne, and she is the Assistant Director of Admin and Training, City of Cambridge out of Massachusetts.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me again, Ricardo.
Oh, yes. Welcome back. And now that we have everyone up here on the screen, we'll start out with some music for the Dispatchers Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. All right. Now we are about to get started here, and usually this is on a Wednesday, but it is the week of Thanksgiving. So decided to go a day early, and we're just going to go ahead and we're going to jump in. And I want to start with Andrea. If you can give us, those who are watching, just a little bit of, about you, a little background story.
Okay. I have been in 911 for almost 24 years. I was at one agency for 23 years and just recently, a year ago, moved to another agency, all within Oregon. It feels like just recently. It's been a year, so it's all relative. Promoted within 5 years of starting as a call taker, promoting through an agency. Worked at a consolidated dispatch center, police, fire, medic for 3 counties. Now I'm at a dispatch center that dispatches fire and medic within 1 county. So,
all right, excellent. Well, welcome to the show. It is Awesome to have you here. And Anne, a little background on you.
So I've been in 911 for about 14 years now. Started out as a 911 call taker, police dispatcher, grew within the ranks, became a CTO, union steward, CGIS rep, 911 coordinator. Then I moved on, worked for a small department as the director, put together a civilian 911 center for them. And when that was done, I decided to follow my dream and go and be in charge of training for a big city department. And that's where I am in Cambridge. And I love every minute of it.
Awesome. This is good. It is excellent to have you back. And Rebecca, now for you, a little background on you.
Yes, sir. I started in emergency services literally right out of high school. I started as an EMT. I have been a dispatcher for a school district police department in Las Vegas where I lived. And then we moved here to Houston and I went straight to work dispatching for fire and EMS for several years. Took a little break going dispatching part-time and went and was a firefighter full-time for 2 years. So I've kind of done everything on both sides of the radio except a police officer. I'm back now dispatching for Cypress Creek EMS, and we dispatch for 17 different agencies. We dispatch primarily fire and EMS right now. So I'm loving every minute of it. It's been fun. I've been a trainer at all the other previous positions, and I'm really enjoying it.
That is excellent. That is good. So fire and EMS all day? How many hours is that? Is that 10, 12?
We work 12-hour days.
Dang.
Yeah. And Sunday was quite a busy day. I took 62 calls alone, just myself in 12 hours.
Man, I loved phones. Radios was more my thing.
Absolutely.
But recently I spoke to Molly out of Australia, and she was telling me that it's just straight up medicals all day, every day. And I said, you know what? I applaud you. I don't envy you because I don't know. Of course, I could do the medicals, but man, sometimes doing medicals just over and over and over, like I need something to break it up, like a chase, or, something like that, something to break it up. But you obviously are digging it, so that's good.
I do miss my police chases. I'm honest about it. I do miss my police chases and my fires, but we still dispatch for fire department. But yeah, I'm definitely missing my police chases for sure. I've had my fair share at them.
Excellent. So we're gonna jump in. We've got 3 major topics that we're going to be talking about, and this was something that I've had on the list for a little while now, and I think, Anne, maybe you and I even talked a little bit about this when we did the individual episode with you, and we were talking about some of the stuff that you've done training wise and some sessions that you were putting together and all. And then Andrea and Rebecca, you both, we had different email conversations going on, and I thought this is the time. It is time to bring them in and really hit home and talk about this. So the first thing, we're going to be talking about burnout, morale, as well as resilience, and we're going to start out with burnout. And so by definition, it says that burnout is a physical or mental collapse caused by overwork or stress. There are high levels of professionalism that may result in burnout. So, I mean, looking at this definition, do you agree with this definition that this is, a pretty good description of what burnout is? Anne?
Yeah, it definitely is. I think that for us in 911, there's even an added bonus to the burnout, which is we have zero control over what's coming our way, right? It's easier. We talk about it all the time. We're all type A personalities. We're control freaks. That's why we're so good at it. But I think that is one of the major parts of burnout is the lack of control over what we have coming our way, both on the phones and on the radio. Because yes, just like Halcyon just said, give me all the pursuits. Yes, that was me too. Like I want the pursuits. I want, the action, but at the same time, I still, my heart still was on my throat every time we had a pursuit or we had a major fire. So definitely love that part of the job. Definitely is part of what makes it so interesting and so captivating. I feel like, if you're a lifer, you know what I mean. But it's also part of what burns you out. And the automation of it as well, because we don't have control over things changing constantly either. So it's a lack of control over what's coming towards us from the calls, from the radio, and then from the administration as well, because, police is changing their procedures all the time, fire is changing their procedures all the time, and we have to adapt on the fly most of the times.
Right. What about you, Rebecca?
I actually am working on a class right now that I'm teaching. It's called Taking Care of Our Own Dispatch Burnout. So I'm actually going to read to you one of the definitions that I use in my presentation. It says burnout, created by a prolonged emotional, mental, and physical exhaustion caused by low job satisfaction, powerlessness, and being overwhelmed. And I think it goes right along with what Anne's saying. We have so little control. We don't know how to say no. We have the superhero syndrome about, yes, of course I can work 136 hours in 12 days and have 7 hours of sleep. Why not? That's me, by the way. I have that. We all have that, but and we take pride in that. We bear that burden as a badge of honor, but so often that's what causes that burnout. That type A personality, that control. Not being able to control things, not being able to say no, we don't take care of our own. We don't take care of us. We take care of everyone else. And that's going to burn us out really quickly.
Yeah. I say it just like that because I'm thinking, damn, just thinking back to some of the stuff that happened to me when I was in dispatch, it wasn't that I wasn't digging the job. For me, it was just, there were so many other things that were going out that I was just completely burned out. I loved the job. I still do. Loved everything that I was doing, but there were so many other things, other factors that were there, county politics, the fact that we were so short staffed, nobody could take any vacation. And it's just crap. Like, what am I going to do? And the same thing, along with that being short staffed, we've got all this overtime that's coming in, and I don't want to get forced for it. And so I'm volunteering so that I don't get forced. But then when I go in, I'm getting forced anyway because it's still happening. And so I'm there, I just put on that face. But man, I was getting burned out. Andrea, what about you? This definition.
The only thing I kind of hesitated about in the definition is a high level of professionalism, because I think that those people that this job is not a good fit for can burn out far quicker because it's not a good fit, and they don't have a high level of professionalism, and they're lackadaisical about the job, but they are still held to all of our standards of, you have to be there, the overtime, the sticking to the policies and things like that. And if you aren't a good fit for it, that I think burns you out faster than those of us that love the job.
Right. Now, have either one of you, and this might be, kind of a hard question, have you hit burnout? And if you've hit that burnout stage, like how many years in did that happen? For me, it was about 6 years in that I really hit that burnout stage hard, and I needed to figure out, I needed to find that fire again. I still had the passion, I loved the job and everything, but there was something that I felt like was missing for me personally, that I needed to get back, and I did, and we'll get to that here pretty soon. But either one of you, whoever would like to start. Actually, well, Rebecca, have you dealt with any, stages of burnout?
So unfortunately, I think I'm kind of on the back end, maybe kind of in the middle of it. I'm like you, I absolutely love what I do. And the thought of not doing it anymore is like inconceivable. But I can see, I think through teaching about burnout and about taking care of our own. And then the resilience program that we're working on, which, like you said, we'll get to that now in a little while. I think through those, I've educated myself to realize that I love what I do, but it is definitely taking its toll on me, and it takes its toll on my family. And I love it, and I don't want to stop, but I'm not sure that I'm going to do this forever, because I have to know that my family and my mental health is more important at some point.
Right. No,
But I love it, though. It's so much fun.
well, that's good. That is excellent. Andrea, what about you?
This is kind of touchy because I guess there was a point I was feeling burnt out, but it was less about the job and more about administration.
Mm-hmm.
And the difference in my own belief system and what I felt was being handed down, if that makes sense. But I have worked very hard for several years with peer support team and teaching new dispatchers. And to me, that's a huge impact on keeping me regenerated. So I probably, if I'm not careful, could easily burn out because I'm involved in trauma team and APCO and peer support and all those other things. And so, but lucky for myself, I don't have the issues of a family life to consider. And I have learned to, okay, no, I need my sleep. So the 136 hours in 2 weeks is not me anymore.
What about you, Anne?
So I kind of, I'm right there with you. Around year 4 or 5 was when I started feeling the burnout. We had a lot of change in the police department that I worked for. Change in administration, change in, we got a new chief. We had lots of change. And I think all those changes and not being able to control those things, again, I think for me, it all gets back to control. And it's like, what's happening next? I need to feel that I have some control over what's happening, at least some part of something. And that's when I began to really burn out. One of the biggest things was like I learned to recognize when the burnout was getting to me to a point where I needed to move on. And it doesn't mean that I have to move on from the job that I love so much, but maybe from the agency or from the point where I was at, if it makes any sense. I think a lot of my burnout had also to do with the negativity going on in the center, not only because we weren't fully civilianized, we still had officers on the desk, and the officers were so negative. So that rubs off on you as well. And it becomes this like vicious circle. And I recognize it now more so than I did, back then, but definitely around year 4 or 5. And, it all started with, the change in administration, the new chief, and that all that stuff, I think, accumulates to cause that burnout. And of course, like you get the silly calls, my neighbor, I didn't get what I wanted out of the drive-through, and that stuff gets to you as well.
Right. Yeah, of course, because you jump from a high priority complaint, and then that comes into play, and you're just grit your teeth and smile.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we'll get you that help out there. But there's so much else, so much more that is going on. So to kind of build on that as well, as we're talking about, the impact. What was the impact around or on those around you, whether it be family or friends? Like, did any of that kind of trickle over in some of those relationships and friendships? Because I know for me, it did. And I'll just say it right now, I was pretty much an asshole when I was at home, and it was because I was dealing with a lot of this stuff, and for me, it was because I wasn't talking about a lot of the calls that I was taking as well. Like I was bearing those calls, and it was just affecting me in so many different ways, and also like you're saying, and some of the negativity that was going on in the center and stuff. But how did that impact, or did it have any impact on any of your friends and family?
For me, it did. I noticed that, especially at a large agency where we're extremely busy, the phones are ringing, and you want the Reader's Digest version, not the Encyclopedia Britannica. So I noticed that when I would come home and my kids would want to talk to me, I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, okay, Reader's Digest version, right? Like, cut to the facts. But that's what I've spent the last 12 hours doing. Okay, ma'am, tell me exactly what happened. No, what happened today, right? You get to the point, you get the information, you get them off the phone, you get to the next call. You treat each person with respect and dignity, but you've also learned, a lot of our training is learning how to control the call, learning how to get what you need from that call. And so when I would get home, it was like, okay, you have to put on that mom face, which I love my children. They're amazing. And my family is so supportive, and they've learned how to kind of, work with me in spite of me. But I noticed that was like, I was very impatient. It's like, I want like, okay, short and sweet, let's to the point. And they want to tell you about every drawn out situation. And then if we had bad calls or something, I would just kind of want to retreat from home. And if I was, we were short staffed and working all the hours, and I'm exhausted. And there were many, many times where I would tell the kids, this is not about you. This is about me. And I am so exhausted that I don't have the capacity to deal with this right now. You've done nothing wrong. I just can't deal with it right now because I haven't slept. And so I noticed that was really kind of a burden for me, that I was kind of forcing that on them. It was definitely affecting.
How about you, Ann?
Yeah, my husband's watching, so he won't let me lie. He said to me once, he said, sometimes I don't know who you are because you have changed so much from, before you took this job. And he was with me when we were already married when I took the job as the 911 dispatcher. And, so he talks about the Ann before the police department and the Ann after the police department. So he definitely saw, the changes and, the impatience, don't dispatch me is a good one. I think all of us have heard it before. And it's usually just this, the same things Rebecca was saying. It's just like, I get to the bottom of it. I don't want the encyclopedia version. I want the Reader's Digest. So definitely it changes you. It does change you.
Before I get to you, Andrea, I have to point this out because both of you have said encyclopedia.
I thought about that. I'm dating myself.
It was in my head. I was thinking, I wonder how many in the audience know what that is. I mean, I'm sure people do know, but I remember seeing the commercials and my family even getting a couple volumes, and those, all of them, like, just enormous. So if you haven't seen it, just Google it. You'll probably find some of the older commercials on YouTube as well. Okay, I'll drop that part of it, but I just had to mention that. That was amazing. Thank you both. Yeah. So, Andrea, what about you on some of these? When we're talking about burnout, did any of it trickle over to maybe some of your friendships or anything like that?
Yeah, and I would agree with the Reader's Digest version. I think that's just typical of all of us. We don't have time to listen to your story, and it does trickle over into our entire life where our friends don't even want to talk to us anymore because it's like, but my husband will say, my last year at my previous agency versus the last year since I've moved agencies, I'm a completely different person because I'm happy and I feel valued and respected. And so I think that plays into a lot of it. You have to, if you want to prevent your employees from burning out, value them. So, yeah, so those things definitely play in. My kids, my youngest is 25. All three of my kids were raised with me doing this. I started when my youngest was just a year old. And so it's all he ever knew. But he's doing a master's program now, and he called me because he's doing research on dispatch stress and stress in 911. And it's like, why? Did I damage you? And so when that's his master's program and he's picked that topic, I'm a little leery about reading his thesis.
Well, no, you hit on something good here, because this goes with a comment that was made here by Halcyon. Talking about those valuing their people that they have there, and she has right here, it says, I feel like admin burns people out faster than the calls. And I mean, I can see that happening. So the admin that I worked with, they came from the same place that I did. They were my supervisors, trainers, and such, and they ended up moving up to director and deputy director. But Rebecca, what are your thoughts on this comment here from the audience, and how admin, the possibilities that admin can burn people out faster than some of the calls?
I completely agree. Absolutely. I think when we were talking about this earlier, I was thinking, I'll bet you if you take any dispatcher and you ask them, even the ones that are bitter and sour and burnt out, and the new ones, if you take all of us and you pool us all together and you say, if I could remove everything else, all the politics, all the drama, the admin, and I'm thankful that I have an amazing admin staff at Creek right now. I mean, the admin is just outstanding. So I don't have that's going against me, but I think a lot of their times their hands are as tied as everybody else's. But I think if you take all the dispatchers and you ask them if we could remove everything, the politics, the sleepless nights, right, all of the other stuff, just the job, do you love it? And I'll bet you every single one, even the burnt out ones, would say, I love the job. It's all the other stuff that I don't, that burns us out. I don't think it's the actual job that burns us out. I think it's the call volume, the low staffing, the admin. I think it all boils down. But yes, having a supportive administration is absolutely huge. That is one thing where I might be burnt out because of several different things, but the administration where I work is absolutely outstanding. So, but I have worked in a previous agency where that was one of the main reasons that I left, was because of the administration, because of the supervision. Not all of them, but a few. And so it was very difficult. So I completely agree. Admin you have to value your employees. You have to.
Now there are comments coming in here from the audience and stuff, and I have to agree with Karen. I think that admin, to a point, does get a bad rap, and I wonder though if some of those admin they're actually those who do not, because there's some people that are admin that don't come from public safety. They've got other jobs that they've let's just say, for example, security or something, and they come in and they don't really understand everything that goes on in the center. So things might not always be the same. Now, if you have someone who comes from the center, they know what it's about. Now, and being manager where you're at and everything, come at it from a different side. As an admin, how is it for you?
Let me say this: admin also gets burnt out.
Oh, I can imagine.
Yeah.
So we have 2 assistant directors at my department now. I do admin and training, and she does operations, or she did before she retired. I inherited a lot of her work. So I'm, doing a lot of the hands-on operation of the center and scheduling and all that stuff. Let me tell you, if you're in a large center like I am right now, with 33 dispatchers, 7 supervisors, 5 working groups, a couple of relief positions. As an admin myself, I do see, why we miss things or why we oversee things. It's a lot easier when you can divide up those those duties, right? Like where she was doing mostly of the scheduling, and I got to be the teacher, the peer support person, the person who didn't have to say no, really, right? Like I didn't have to say no to, oh, you can't have that day off, you can't do this, or you can't do that. So yes, so admin does get a bad rap sometimes. But like I said, I've worked in places where admin did not support dispatch. I think we were having this conversation before we started, where we've had incidents where admin didn't recognize dispatch or didn't recognize the people that were working. One thing that I try really, really hard to do at my agency is I want to see my dispatchers as dispatchers. I don't treat them as children. I want, we're all adults. We're going to be treated as adults. When I bring people in and I have to have a conversation or I have to address an issue, I always put it back on them. I said, I hate doing this. You put me in this position to actually have to call you in and do this. So it's always a conversation. It's never condescending. It's never, it's how can we move forward and how can we make it together? Because I feel like that takes a little bit of that sting out and helps with the burnout on that end.
Right. Now, Andrea, what about you? What are your thoughts on this part of it?
I do believe that admin gets a bad rap sometimes. I also believe that, and it sounds like your people. And I think that's an ideal part of being admin and being involved and understanding the job. It's when we have administration that's making the rules, but doesn't understand what we're doing every single day and doesn't understand the call load and doesn't have to work shift work or even hasn't moved up through the ranks so that they never really had to. And so when we do shift bid late in the year and people are frustrated because they don't know what their shifts are, that's super frustrating to people. And our employees, they're depending on us to put out shift bid so that they can know what their life is. And I think when we don't recognize how important those little things are, because they're insignificant in our life as a management team, because we know we're working Monday through Friday, 8 to 5 or whatever our shift is. But it's tough on our dispatchers.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Now, there's a couple of comments here that I want to read. So Halcyon says, I don't think it's just dispatch admin. It's also when you work with sworn who do not respect the job. You can have the greatest civilian manager, and they can only do so much to protect their people from the sworn. And then another comment that's in here from Marilyn says, for me as an admin, I'm tired. I love my people, and I do all I can for them. But sometimes it's just not enough, and it takes a toll on everyone. But with all that I love what I do, and I will keep trying to make it better for us. So
I think we also have to realize that even as admin, they might be our bosses, but they still have bosses. And so
there's
you know what I mean? They can only do so much. They still have a boss that they have to please, and they still have a boss that they have to answer to. And yes, we might send things up to them, but they have to send it up to their boss. And it might stop not with our administration. It might stop 2 levels up, but all we see is that we've sent it up to the administration. So just understanding that our administration still has a boss. And so they have limits that they can do. Again, I'm extremely blessed that I've got an amazing administration system that I'm working with right now that actually did come through dispatch. They worked their way up as a dispatcher, as a medic, and they're there now. And it's been a huge blessing. So, but I think people too often forget that even their bosses have bosses.
Right.
Bosses and budgets,
yes.
Other things that they have to work through.
Yes, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in Texas, right? Are you guys
Yes,
hiring?
Yes, we're always hiring. Everybody's always hiring.
That's funny. So there was something that I ended up getting in my inbox, and I want to read this, see if we can kind of discuss this a little bit, because this was interesting to get, and I'm hoping I've got this right, because I've got pieces here, and it says, so I hit about 3 years in, and I immersed myself in everything I could: public education, CTO, and peer support. Even after all of this, becoming a supervisor really just isn't in my future. A lot of people are in the same position, whether whether it not be something they want to do, or there just plain isn't the opportunity because of because it might be a limited need. How do you deal with the feeling of peaking a few years in, that you're still good enough, and it's okay not to be, more like, a supervisor or something, and then continue your position as a dispatcher or call taker? The person says, I've struggled with this, and recently there have been others who have reached out for similar reasons. In your experience, like all of us here, in your experience, do you have any good training or anything like this that specifically addresses that aspect of not burning out?
In your
So-
face.
I think that when you get to that point where you feel like you're at the end of that rope, you have to decide what's the next step for you. I mean, I feel like, and I think Ricardo and I have talked about this at length about our Latino moms and how Latino moms are so pushy. And I feel like this is so much part of it, is like, what's next? And as the son of an immigrant, I think we always have this in our heads, like, what is next? In my first agency, there is no dispatch supervisor, right? I was doing all those things. I was CTO, I was the CGIS rep, I was the 911 coordinator, I was the IT person when the IT was not available. And on top of that, I also had the sworn and the administration and all that stuff. So I think it's recognizing when it's time to move on. And it doesn't mean that you just move on because you hate the job, or that you move on because you hate that department, because I still love that department, and I still like do a lot of things for them. I take their calls on Sunday mornings when they have questions. But it's been 6 years now that I've been gone, and they still don't have a supervisor. They still don't have, it's still the same way I left it. So that stuff kind of brings me back to my point where, like, you have to recognize that if it is your goal to grow, then you might have to grow somewhere else. And this is something that, several of the lieutenants that I used to work with have said to me, you actually realized that in order to grow, you had to leave, even though you loved what you did here, even though you loved the people that you worked with, even though, you had a family here, you were part of our law enforcement family, you were part of our police family, you knew that you had to leave in order to grow. And I think that's how you need to, once you get to that point where you feel like you don't have anywhere else to go where you are, then it's time to move on. And it's, it doesn't have to be to a different career. It can be to a different center. And yes, it does sometimes take a lot to establish your credibility when you get to a new center, because when I got to the center that I'm at right now, I never dispatched in Cambridge, never, ever, ever. So it's very hard to establish your credibility with people at that point. It takes an extra added stress to your, to what you're doing. But at the end, it is rewarding. It is, people do recognize that I did dispatch at some point, and that I did do the 136 hours a week at some point, to get to where I am.
Right. What about you, Rebecca?
Go ahead, Andrea.
You jumped in. Go ahead.
Playing off of what Ann said is, yeah, it took me 23 years to move, but that was it. It's like, okay, I've been a supervisor here for 18 years. There's nothing else. And as much as I loved all of my people and my family, it was good for me to move. As hard as it is to, and that was one of my questions is, am I up to proving myself to a new agency? And after a year, I feel like, okay, most of the people there are accepting and come in and visit with me, and I feel like have built relationships again. But that's tough. But I also wanted to say, you don't always have to promote to be a supervisor or manager to be a leader. I think that people have to recognize how much good they're doing if they're a CTO and they're involved in peer support, and how much good they do. And even if they aren't involved in committees, if you're a dedicated employee there every single day doing the job, we need you. I mean, not everybody can promote, and we have to give kudos to those people that are great at doing the line level job and committed to it.
I completely agree. Not everybody is meant to be a supervisor. Not everybody is meant to be a trainer. Some people are just meant to be just knocked down, just awesome dispatchers. So be the best dispatcher that you can be. If you're looking for more, but maybe not that promotion, what extra things are you involved in? You may be able to support your supervisor without being a supervisor. How can you lighten the load on them? And it's still going to help you grow and still help you learn things, but not necessarily take the responsibility of a supervisor. Get involved in activities, in dispatch activities. There's so many classes that you can take. There's so many. Are you teaching? You might be the best dispatcher on the floor, and you might have been there for 20 years and you have no desire to promote. That's okay. But are you teaching others and sharing your experiences? Are you doing the peer-to-peer support? There's so many other activities that you can be involved in to grow. Without growing up, you can grow out, if that makes sense.
Excellent.
And we also have to take into consideration where that person is in their life. Somebody that has little kids at home may not really want to join a bunch of committees or do a bunch of projects, but they're committed to their family, and that's okay too.
Absolutely. I've been a trainer at every single job that I've been at, except this one. But I've also have 3 kids that we homeschool full time. And so for me, teaching at work and then teaching at home is a lot. So I've taken that step back, and I've recognized that right now is not that time for me in my life. Do I love training? Absolutely. Do I miss it? Yes, but it's not the right time in my life right now.
Right.
Here's an interesting one here as well. So, but on the flip side, how can you still feel valued? You do the best you can, but get no credit or accolades. Oh, who wants to take a crack at that one?
So I'm going to step out of this one because that is actually my best friend that is asking that question. So I try to value her and give her those accolades because I saw her as probably one of the weakest dispatchers when I started working with her. And when her and I worked together, it was just her and I at one point on a floor. And she was probably one of the weakest dispatchers that I had ever met. And I tell you, she is one of the strongest dispatchers I have ever met now, because she took my weakness on the phones and made me better. And I took her weakness on the radio and made her better. And we could run that dispatch center. So now that I'm not there, I'm not able to kind of work, build her up as much as possible. So I'd like to see what everybody else has to say on this one.
Excellent. Andrea or Ann?
Ann, do you have, I can.
Go ahead, Andrea.
I guess this is where I feel like it's important for managers, administrative, to recognize what their people are doing. And if you don't have management or admin or supervisors that can do that for other people, it's hard. And you have to get your kudos from yourself and know you are doing a great job and know what you're contributing to the world of dispatch. And don't make this job who you are, but make it what you do for a living. Make sure to get your kudos from other aspects of your life.
Excellent.
So.
Ann?
Yeah, I agree with what Andrea just said. I think a lot of times, especially when you start and when you begin to be successful at it, because I feel like the first couple of years as a dispatcher are very, trial and error, and you're still like learning how to, crawl before you walk. But once you get to that point where you're walking, you're on your own, you're a good dispatcher, it's very easy to fall into that trap of, I'm a dispatcher, I'm a 911 dispatcher. No. You're not a 911 dispatcher. You work as a 911 dispatcher. And I think once you recognize this difference, it's easier to move on from those, no credit, no accolades. This is just my job. And not that it's not an important job, it is. And we know that people do a great job every day and they're not recognized for it. But I think it once you learn to differentiate who you are from what you do, it helps a little bit on that end. Right. And again, going back to my, if you're at the end of your rope, then it might be time to move on.
Mm-hmm. And I think I'm just going to add up to like what I said earlier. I think if we all could take just the job itself, we love the job, but it's all the other stuff that burns us out and that brings us down. We have to be confident in who we are and know who we are and our abilities, and not let anything else kind of dim our light in that.
Right. Now, let's look at morale. So by definition, and these two, they go, they can go hand in hand with how, things work out in dispatch or any place for that matter. But by definition, is the mental and emotional condition as of enthusiasm, confidence, or loyalty of an individual or a group with regard to the function or tasks at hand. So I want to see from each one of you, if you can give an example of, high morale at the center and then low morale. What are some examples there? And we'll start with you.
All right. Let's see. Low morale. I think my center, especially, I think every center, there are the rumor mills, right? One of the worst morale killers in every center is a rumor mill, because you know what happens when somebody takes one thing and turns it into a rumor and starts speculating over that thing, and they don't know anything about it. And it could be something simple. It becomes something so big, and everybody's involved and everybody's talking about it, but nobody really knows what's going on. And it's tough to kind of dismantle it at that point. Like, it's so rough, especially in a big center. In a smaller center, you call a staff meeting, you bring everybody in, and you can usually like talk your way through it. But with, a large dispatch center, it's hard to get to everybody and to have those frank conversations and to clear the slate. Let's clear the air. Let's make sure that everybody understands why is it that, we're doing things. So I think that's one of like the low morale things. In terms of high morale, I love National Telecommunications Week. I do. I am a sucker for National Telecommunications Week. I'm the one that's at the center every day, making breakfast for my dispatchers. I'm the one putting up signs. I'm the one making little, gifts for them, dropping it off on their mailbox. So I also see that like human side of that, the morale and building the morale that way. But it's hard to do it on your own. It's very difficult to do it when it's only, one person on your center or like two people on your center trying to move that little squeaky wheel every time.
Right. Andrea or Rebecca? Let's go with Rebecca.
I think that covering time, calling in sick, I think that is a big one for, it can go either way, that high morale or that low morale. When you have people that are going through something, difficult like cancer or something where they're dealing with something in their family, and you have everybody that's pulling together and, doing Christmas for their kids or covering their shifts or going out to, help them in any way possible, making dinners for them. That's where that high morale, that's where we become family. That's where that family atmosphere really comes into play. And we always say that we're family, but so often we act like those sibling rivalries, right? But when you have a dispatcher that's going through something very difficult in their life that's, uncontrollable, that's when you see that morale and that high morale, and everybody's coming together. And what can I do? Where can I donate money? What can I do? Can I cover their shift? Stuff like that. That's where that high morale comes in. Along with National Telecommunicators Week, our administrative staff, we are treated like royalty during that week. I think we all gained like 10 pounds that week because every meal is catered. I mean, it's just all of our agencies come together and they fight over who can provide lunch one day or whatever. So we are just treated like royalty. I think seeing our administration go to bat for us and really fight for us is a huge morale booster. I think when you're short-staffed and you have people calling in and they're abusing that system, and then it's like, well, I'm just tired of it and I'm just going to call in. And when you have people that abuse that part of the system, and then it's just a trickling effect, the morale gets really bad around there because, I mean, he's just going to call in. Why would I cover a shift for him, right? I'm not going to, when somebody really needs a shift covered and nobody wants to cover it because you're the guy that calls in all the time, that's when morale gets really bad because everybody's tired and nobody wants to pick up.
Right. Andrea, how about you?
I think exactly what Rebecca said is when push comes to shove and it's either something horrible in somebody's life or something great like a baby being born or something as well, or a horrible call, we're great at sticking together. But in the day-to-day life, sometimes we have a hard time and we're, like you said, the sibling rivalry and treating each other like the hated sibling. But, and I love National Telecommunicator Week, but at a time of low morale in a center, even that is taken as a negative, oh yeah, they're acknowledging us 1 week a month or 1 week a year. And so you have to fight that negativity on top of trying to acknowledge them for that. But I think that the bitterness and sick calls are huge examples of the low morale. But then you go to a center and people are helpful and they volunteer to cover each other's shifts or, step up to the plate when somebody needs a day off. Those are, and it all seems like it's about time coverage and overtime and that, but that really is how dispatch shows caring, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely is. And I'm seeing it, I think, firsthand now for the first time when, doing all the overtime and doing all the scheduling at my agency these past few weeks is just every time I can't get a shift fill, I usually send an email out and I'm like, hey guys, still need this one shift field. Just, if anybody's willing to do a swap or a swap shift or, come off of a day shift and work this midnight or come off of midnight and work a day shift. And just like seeing people volunteering for that kind of warms me up. And I'm like, yay, somebody gets to have a day off because you're volunteering for this job. So for this shift. So it really does kind of help in that sense. And it's sad sometimes that we are talking about time and time off and people having the opportunity to be with their family. But it is a lot of the time, one of the biggest morale killers is the person that's calling out sick all the time or the amount of overtime you're putting out every week. I mean, I had 72 shifts posted last week. So it's crazy. It's the end of the year. So we want people to have their time off, but we also want the center to be full. So it's a balancing act.
Right. So everything that you are all talking about definitely resonates, and it makes me think of some of the things that we did at my old dispatch center. So we were going through a time, as I mentioned before, being so short staffed that nobody could take any time off. Like, we're the best at communications, but when it came to communicating with each other,
yes,
was not good, and it was affecting us. Now, when a call would come in like a well-oiled machine, we were doing what we were doing, but then after that, back to our own thing, and it was bad, and it was not fun. So some of the things that they did to implement, and you know, each one of you can join in if you have an example as well. But a few of the things that we did was one was putting up like a high five board. So, you know, if something, you know, if someone had an excellent call, like nobody would say anything about it, you would just end up going in and it would get put up there. There wasn't an email or anything that said, hey, check out the high five board or whichever. It was the board was there. If a call happened, a supervisor or whichever would put it on there, would tack it on there, and everyone would see it. And then, you know, you'd see that person later on and say, like, hey, good job. You know, that's pretty awesome. You know, you did very good. And it's little things like that that were really cool that I enjoyed myself. And then there was another thing that we did where we broke up into teams, and we had to kind of write things about each other. and that actually did help out. But there was another part of the wall that we had there, one of the walls, and we put up pictures of ourselves as kids, and then you had to guess who you thought was who. And so that was another thing that really kind of, it made it fun, you know, in a time where we were not getting a lot of time off, in a time where county politics were just kicking our asses, and it trickles down because it was hitting admin, and then it would hit us as well, and it just sucked. But it was projects like that we all did together that really helped us really come together, and it made the job and being there fun.
Something that we used to do when I worked at my previous agency, because we were a small agency and we worked really, really closely with a couple of other sister agencies. We would do every once in a while, we would get all of us, of course, we were all working night shift at the time, and we'd all get together with our sister agencies, with the other dispatchers that we worked with, and we'd go have breakfast after shift, you know, like on a Saturday morning. The shift that, you know, the group that I'm working with now, sometimes as a shift, we'll get together and we'll do stuff as a shift. We used to have like dispatch bingo. You know, that's always a fun one. But I think it doesn't even have to be going and doing. And I don't think that it has to be some big event. Honestly, it's the really small stuff that matters. We kind of got to the point where we knew what everybody's favorite drink on our shift was. And so if I stopped and, you know, got my Monster, right, or my Bang, because of course we're dispatchers and we live on caffeine and no sleep. I had a list of like everybody's favorite drink. And so I would just stop and get like everybody's favorite drink. And coming to work on a day where you're exhausted, it just always happened to be that day where you were just feeling like you were beat down and your favorite drink was sitting on your console. Man, that just started your day off great. Or something simple as, hey guys, we're working, because our shifts, we work Monday, Tuesday, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the next week we work Wednesday, Thursday. So on our long week, man, we'll do like, hey, everybody, we're just going to do potluck on Saturday. What do you guys want to bring? And just doing a simple shift potluck, I think those all bring morale up, especially among the group that you work with. Maybe not within the whole agency, but we're not trying to move a mountain. We're trying to move one rock at a time, and it adds up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we definitely did the potluck. I think that's, I mean, pre-COVID times, I think, right. Especially at my agency now, like we're not allowed to bring any food from the outside. There's a lot of moving parts, but you know, the potlucks are usually a great hit. The breakfast during National Telecommunications Week, honestly, like you come in, fry, you know, 12 eggs, make egg sandwiches, and you know, everybody has a nice meal. We did a shout out board and then one of our dispatchers, she got a small, it's like a mini grant from the city, and it's a wellness grant, and it's to promote healthy living, healthy eating. And what we did was a community fruit bowl. So every week somebody would bring in a different kind of fruit. It would sit there. Anybody, you know, instead of using the vending machine, we're going to use the fruit bowl. So lots of different activities. We've had yoga at the center. We've had Pilates. But it's hard. It's hard to get people, like when you're at that low morale, it's very hard to get people to come in and actually like do these things. But you know, you keep trying. Like you said, it's not moving the mountain, it's moving small pebbles at a time.
Yeah. Andrea?
I agree. And it's funny because we've never met, and it's like all of our stuff is about time and covering time and then food. Because that is, if you can go and say, hey guys, it's 9 in the morning, I'm going to go do a coffee run for everybody. What do you want? That's a great thing. And yeah, it costs a little bit, but you know what? If you do that once a month, it really doesn't matter. And it does help morale. I have a candy bowl sitting in my office. And yeah, it's not as great as a fruit bowl. But I have fruit snacks in it sometimes.
Hey, the fruit bowl is in the kitchen. The candy bowl is in my office.
But I always have kept a candy bowl in my office just because somebody, a crappy call or a crappy day, or I just want a piece of chocolate, but come in and check in and chit chat for a few minutes and what's going on in your world. And I get to bring my dogs to work at my new office. And it's really funny because I'll go in and be sitting in my office and they're generally just under my desk. And someone will come in, do you have anybody with you today? And it's like, no. And they just turn around and walk out. And it's like, why did you even come to work? But I can take them and somebody will come in, one of the dispatchers will come in, just sit down on the floor in my office and visit with the dogs and then get up and go back to work after the break's over. So, nice. Yeah, it's pretty fabulous.
I want to switch here now from morale to resilience. We're just over an hour here, but I want to make sure to play this before we get to the resilience part, and then kind of go into the wrap up of this episode. I recorded an episode earlier today with a gentleman named Michael Sugru, and he is a retired police sergeant, and he is also an advocate for mental health and wellness. And there was a lot to this episode. It is a very powerful one, but there was a clip that I took from it. It's just over 7 minutes long, and I want you to listen to this because as we're talking about burnout and and morale, and there are some times where we might be there and thinking, is this the right thing for me, or is this what am I doing? Is it, do people recognize this? Do they just anything like that? What he ends up talking about, your job does matter and what you do matters, and people do see it and they do recognize it. You might not hear it, but people do. And it has been changing for a while now. So I want to play this really quick, and I want you to listen to it all before you comment, please. And then afterwards, we'll kind of talk about it here. And I have to warn you right off the bat, as I pull this clip up, the panelists and I were laughing about this earlier because my eyes were closed in this clip right off the beginning before I hit play. And I look like a fool. So there I am. I look like I'm really not asleep. So I'm going to go ahead and play this clip. And again, I want you to listen to all of this before you comment in here, and then please, after the video is done, please comment, your thoughts. So here we go.
As an officer, as an eventual supervisor and a sergeant, I had no clue what our dispatchers were going through. Mm-hmm. And part of that is the mentality. I know that's changing because our dispatchers are first responders. And I know that there's a lot of movement that's being made to support that. But when you talk about, now we're talking 2004, so we're talking like 16 years ago, that wasn't the case. Yeah. And people didn't look at dispatchers as first responders, and they didn't understand it. And, I feel ashamed, but I didn't understand it until I started working with dispatchers, not on my job as a police officer, but once I sought help and going through first responder retreats, first responder support meetings, and actually really getting to know the people, the dispatchers, really listening to what their experience and how they're feeling. Because, when you're working in the agency, everyone's so understaffed, they're overtasked, they're just so busy. how often do we really get to know our people? And I'm not talking about on the surface. I'm talking about know our people. When we know something's not right, when something's off. And, we're so quick to punish our people, but we're not quick to find out, wait a minute, let's take a step back and find out, why has this person been late, 5 times this month? Why are they starting to drink more? Why did this person get this DUI? We just want to hammer them instead of getting to the root of the problem. And so, I think there needs to be a lot of education done across the board, but I think it's important that officers, if any officers are out there listening to this right now, you do have to get to know your dispatchers, not on a superficial level. I screwed that up. And even in the major incidents I was involved in, I could remember thinking to myself, and this was the incident where I almost died and my partners almost died. And we had a critical incident debrief afterwards, which, we did, but nobody really shared anything big because, it's the stigma, it's the culture. So everybody's like, okay, go around. I'm good. You're good. Okay. Yeah. But I remember thinking at the time, why is the dispatcher here in this critical incident debrief? They weren't there. They didn't almost die. This guy with the butcher knife didn't almost stab them. And I feel so bad for saying that, and I feel so guilty. And this is part of the reason why I wanted to be on the show, because I need people to hear me, and I need them to understand what I'm saying, because I know it's going to resonate with some people out there. And what I need to also tell you is that at this time, and it's since changed, there was only one dispatcher on duty when my incident happened. It was the night after Christmas. The incident happened 3 a.m. And it turns out that this lady who was a victim and this guy was trying to kill her, she had called but got transferred to the wrong dispatcher and went to the fire department, which handles medical calls, because they thought somebody was choking. But no, it turns out that this guy with a knife was trying to kill her. And so it gets transferred to my dispatcher. And I didn't hear this actual dispatch tape until a court proceeding like 5 months later. And I can't begin to tell you how heinous and horrible that call was. And the fact that not only was she handling that call, but she was giving us information. She was handling the radio. She was fielding 911 calls that were coming in. I mean, she was literally the call taker and the dispatcher, and she was doing it all by herself. And I also didn't think about the fact that she knew she was sending us into a potentially deadly situation where we might die. And she had no choice. She's literally sending us to this call. And I remember when I heard this dispatch tape of the radio transmissions and just the panic that I heard in her voice. And I'd never heard any kind of panic from her like this before. And she was a phenomenal dispatcher. Phenomenal. And I can't tell you how that made me feel. I mean, but she kept her calm. She kept her cool. She gave us the information she needed. But once that happened, she got stuck in dispatch for hours without relief because everybody's at the scene. Everybody's worried about the officers. Everybody's getting called in. And where was the priority of thinking about her? And it is messed up. She's no longer a dispatcher. And I can't imagine the toll that this incident alone took on her. Knowing that we got sent in there, knowing that we almost died, knowing that we killed somebody. And she didn't know, come to find out when I talked to her later, she didn't know who got shot, what happened. There was a long period where she didn't know if we were hurt, if we were injured, if we were dying. And she had to sit there with that. Meanwhile, and field all these calls and make all these notifications. So she's fielding calls. She's making notifications. I mean, it's just unimaginable what she went through. And I know for a fact that she didn't get the support that she needed. And that's because of the mentality, and it's the understanding of the officers and the dispatchers or the call takers. I know it now, but I didn't know it then. And I'm a smart guy. I'm not saying that to brag. I've been very successful, but I can't believe how dumb I was when it came to understanding what our dispatchers do and what they go through. I mean, I'm ashamed. I'm literally ashamed. And I'm trying to give back now. I'm trying to make a difference. And there's 2 programs that I volunteer for that help dispatchers. And that's how I'm trying to make up for it. I'm trying to do better because I messed up. It's all about understanding. It's all about just realizing that they are as exposed as we are. It's simple as that. Sometimes it's worse. Hearing it but not seeing it and not knowing what's happened. Talking to these dispatchers who have literally heard people commit suicide on the other line of the phone, who have literally heard the voices of dying people, whether it be children's or spouses in a DV incident. Can you imagine that? No. As an officer, we don't get that part of it. Yeah, sure, we're in dangerous situations, but it is just as traumatic, if not more. And I don't think, at least I didn't get it. I didn't understand that. I didn't have that concept. It's important that people get that. That's why our dispatchers are first responders. They are the front line. They're the ones that make the first contact if it's a call coming in. And they literally have to make life and death decisions in split seconds, just like we do. It's simple. It's period. Simple as that.
So that was a clip from the episode that I recorded earlier today, and as he got to that part, and then it was my turn to speak. It was hard for me to talk a little bit right away, only because I guess I got a little emotional in a good way. Like, he gets it, and he learned. Like that is amazing. And I thank you, Michael, so much for coming on and sharing your story, as well as this incident that happened. This was an incident that he had not talked about at all, but wanted to come on to the show to talk about what happened with his dispatcher, and just how people really need to understand what it is. So I wanted to play that because of everything that we're talking about. And we kind of talked about this before we started this here, but I want to get your thoughts and all on this. So Rebecca, let's start with you.
I love what he said, where he said, we just didn't know. So often people don't know what we do. They think we're a secretary, and that's okay. It's okay that people don't understand what we do. I have never, ever met a police officer, a firefighter, an EMT, anyone who has ever come into a dispatch center and seen a dispatcher do what we do and said, y'all don't do anything. Y'all are just a glorified secretary. Every person that I have ever met, especially when all you know what is hitting the roof, and we're in there and we are that well-oiled machine that we all thrive on. And people just step back and they're just dumbfounded at like what we do. Everybody says, I don't know how you do what you do. There's no way that I could do it. Because it takes a special person to do what we do. So often we are those ones that are sitting on the phone. And even if they do understand what we're doing, you know, we had one incident where we had an older gentleman that went into cardiac arrest, and his wife was on the phone, and we heard him talking, and, the medics got out there, and it was really no big deal to them. Yes, it's a sad situation, but he didn't think too much about it. And he actually happened to listen to the 911 call, and he said, now I understand. And that's really all that he could say. Now I understand. Because he heard that we were the last voice that man ever heard. We were the ones that were sitting on the phone with him when his wife was screaming for us to help him. And all we could do was, walk through CPR and wait for the responding units. We are the first responders, without a doubt.
Exactly. It's just such a powerful clip there. Like I said, I had to play it for this one because of everything that we were talking about. As we're going into the wrap up of this round 13, let's touch on resilience here quick. So, and the definition for resilience is the capability of a strained body to recover its size and shape after deformation caused especially by compressive stress. Another definition that comes with resilience is just basically an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. So, what is resilience to you? What does this? What does resilience mean to you? What does it look like to you? And Andrea, let's go ahead and start with you.
I think what it looks like to me is to continue to do what we do, to continue to make a difference without it affecting our lives negatively. It's like we talked about. How does burnout affect your life? If we can learn to deal with whether it be whatever it is that gets to you, whether it be the admin or the calls or the hours, learn to deal with it and recover from it healthily.
Awesome. How about you, Anne?
I think it's also learning to identify when it's time to reach out to somebody and to ask for help. We are so used to helping everybody else that we forget that we need help ourselves sometimes. I tell this to my dispatchers all the time. I say, listen, you can't pour from an empty cup. And, whether it's on their personal life or in the center, a lot of them will come and, take a seat in my office, have some of my candy, which I appreciate because whether or not, sometimes, but it's important for them to know that they to understand and to acknowledge when it's time to reach out and ask for help.
What about you, Rebecca?
In the line that we do, in what we do, I've often said it, we're actually building a resilience team right now at work. So this is right along. I'm excited about this topic right now. I'm super passionate. It's helping me through my burnout, building that resilience. But what does that look like? For me, what I've said is that we can't prevent the bad stuff from happening. But how do we better prepare all of our first responders, not just our dispatchers, our medics, our firefighters, our police officers, and our dispatchers? How do we better prepare them before it happens? How do we walk them through it happening, those bad calls? How do we walk through those bad calls with them? And how do we continue them on afterwards? So what are we doing on the before side? Are we making healthy choices for our food? Are we financially fit? Are we working on that mind, body, spirit? Are we doing all of that prior to? Are we getting that time to decompress right after that bad call? Are we having that time to sit down and do that peer-to-peer talking right after that bad call? And then what are we looking for afterwards? I think it's all encompassing in building that resilience, being able to continue on doing what we do to the best of our ability. You have to deal with it before, during, and after.
And what are some resources, each one of you, what are some resources that you know of, that talk on these tools? You, Rebecca, I know that like you just said, you're building, a team, and I know that you're working on different sessions and classes and everything else. So for those who are watching and are looking for more things, I think so. There's been a lot of shit that has come from 2020, but I think one of the big things that's come out as well is there's been a lot of different trainings that have been coming out that people are able to get a hold of. A lot that are free, and then others that that are paid for. And either way, it's all good stuff. So we'll just go ahead and start with you, Rebecca. What are some of the tools, or even some resources that those are watching and listening, even on the replay, that they can take advantage of?
So it's probably one of the easiest places to go and look for all of our list, because like I said, we're starting this resilience team, and it's you can check us out on our website, which we are still building. Again, we are brand new in this, but it's Cypress Creek RT, which stands for resilienceteam.com. And there's actually a resource page which has already been built. And I'm telling you, we have a list of books for dispatchers, police officers, firefighters, medics, everybody. The First Responder Conference, if you guys have not checked out the First Responder Conference, you have to. They have about an hour-long conference each week. It's a free webinar every single week. It has been a huge asset for us. There are so many different podcasts that we listen to. Honestly, Ricardo, I give everybody your website as Within the Trenches. You are one of my resources, right? Because you talk about the realness of 911, which it is real. It's very real. And we have to talk about the realness. But we talk about the light side too, right? That's a huge avenue. That's a resource. Listening to Tracy Eldridge, her podcast and all that she's doing with On Scene First with Tracy. I mean, Healthiest Dispatcher with Adam Tim. Those are all huge resources. But again, if you go to our website, not a plug for our team, it's just our resources. There's podcasts, there's books, all different kinds of classes that you can take. And 90% of them are free. They're out there. You just have to reach for them.
Awesome. How about you, Ann?
Yeah, for us here in Mass, I mean, we I just shared, I think a little while ago, one of our hospitals has come up with a first responder helpline. So it's a free service that they're offering, and they actually encouraged 911 dispatchers to take part in it and made sure to acknowledge on all of their social media stuff and all their press releases that it was for all first responders, including 911 dispatchers. So I love that. And again, we have here in Mass, we have a great CISM teams all over the state. We have regional teams, and we also have a statewide CISM committee that meets every month and also has all these free resources and things like that. So, if people in Mass or even outside of Mass want to reach out, we're always here. Another big resource I've been finding lately is some of the Facebook groups and of course Ricardo's website and even like the 911 Wonder Women and Be an Encourager and all these things that are a little more positive and bring out the light things of but are also a place that we can bring our rants and our events and our to and get like that other side of the coin a little bit from the comments and the people that are in there as well. So
excellent. How about you, Andrea?
I love the fact that 2020, I mean, with as much shit as 2020 has had, the one good thing about 2020 is I feel like there's been so much free training and so much more social media presence and support for each other. And I think that's absolutely phenomenal. I was laughing when Rebecca said she recommends your podcast because we had to send all of our new hires home in June for 2 weeks. And part of their training was to listen to all of your podcasts.
I love it.
that is because, very cool.
But, and I know Stephanie Kahn is going to be on a future episode with you, and she is absolutely phenomenal. I would recommend her to everybody. I've done a CISM group with her here in Oregon. She has a book out that is, oh my gosh, I can't remember the name of it. Increasing Resilience in First Responders. But there is a section just for 911, which is unusual because she was a dispatcher. And so that's a huge thing that I recommend. So, and I said, most importantly, keep outside interest, people. I mean, I preach that to every single person. If you coached T-ball before you became a 911 dispatcher, do it. Because you have to keep these outside interests, and you can't just talk to cops and firefighters and other dispatchers. You have to talk to normal people.
You got it. No, you're definitely right there. And also to go back to Michael really quick here, one of the programs that he ends up talking about, and I'm gonna put it in the comments here for anybody to check out. It's called Save a Warrior, And you can go to that website. It's for military and law enforcement and dispatchers and call takers. Everyone is in there, so make sure to check that out as well. Also, another resource, good friends of mine, and that's over at it's 911training.net. That's for the 911 Training Institute. Jim Marshall, Ryan Dedman, they have some excellent programs there, so make sure to check them out as well. Jim Marshall is a beast, in the best way. He does a lot of good work, and I've known him for years, and they just do excellent stuff. So make sure to check them out as well. They've got a lot of different sessions and a whole class hours worth on resilience and burnout, all the stuff that we've talked about here. So thank you all three of you for being here. I appreciate it. This has been an excellent round, and it's just been a pleasure. So thank you, all three of you.
Thank you, Ricardo. We appreciate the opportunity.
So I will be right back here with the three of you. And for those who are watching right now, also, thank you, all of you, for being here and joining us for round 13 of the Dispatchers Roundtable. This episode has been sponsored by InDigital as well as Rapid Deploy. If you have any comments, questions, or you have any topics that you would like to see discussed, or you want to be a panelist, you can send an email out to wttpodcast@gmail.com. Once again, that is wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That's facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This has been sponsored by, like I said, InDigital and Rapid Deploy. And if you're looking for any bonus content, you can check us out at patreon.com/WTT Podcast. This can be seen 24/7 on Facebook, YouTube, as well as Twitter. That'll be Periscope. And have an excellent holiday. Have a good Thanksgiving. Eat tons. Enjoy your family. If you're working, thank you so much for everything that you do. It's important. So important. And you're amazing. So again, thank you all so much for the job that you do. And it's appreciated more than you know. So have a good one, and I will see you soon.